Welcome to the Subnautica Ultimate Challenge, where I will be attempting to beat Subnautica while following a set of rules and restrictions designed to make the game unreasonably difficult. But what will those rules be? Well, in the world of Subnautica speedruns, the most time-consuming run is the 100% hardcore glitchless run. This means I'll have to unlock all achievements, blueprints, and databank entries. I cannot use bugs or unintended behavior to glitch through walls or fly through the air on a piece of scrap metal. And there's permadeath. If I die, I do not respawn and my save is deleted. But this isn't a speedrun. This is an ultimate challenge. So let's add some more rules to make it harder. Let's start with no surfacing. That's right, no breaking the surface of the water. To make the game possible, we will allow surfacing indoors so that we can still access our life pod, sea bases, and we'll count the entire area enclosed by the Aurora as indoors as well. That's going to make it challenging to get oxygen, at least until we can start using a vehicle with its own air supply. Which brings us to our next rule, no vehicles. We're not allowed to pilot anything from the mobile vehicle bay, with the exception of the final escape rocket needed to win the game. Let's see, what other restrictions can we add? How about some respect for the animals of this planet? We are not allowed to put any animals in a bioreactor or use damaging weapons on them, and we must stick to a strictly vegetarian diet. That means no filtered water, since the filtered water says non-vegetarian right in the description. Also, who knows what they put in those nutrient bars? Better cut those out too. This next rule basically keeps us from skipping ahead, and says that we cannot visit a location until the game guides us there. Finally, we'll add some extra tasks that we must achieve before we can actually win. We must build a mega base that includes at least one of everything you can build. We must hatch one of each type of egg and all 5 cuttlefish eggs. And finally, we must find and harvest the rarest resource node in Subnautica, the purple pinecone. Now sadly, during my first session, I had an issue with my recording software that left my screen looking weirdly zoomed in like this. So we're going to skim our way through the early game. As you can see, I was lucky to spawn close enough to a kelp forest that I could swim there and back without surfacing. This meant I could collect creepvine seed clusters and craft the all-important survival knife. Why was the knife important? Because I was hungry. Due to my vegetarian diet, I couldn't eat fish or the nutrient bars in the life pod, and I wasn't allowed to go to a location with edible plants yet, even if I could get there without drowning. This left me with one option for food: creepvine samples. Since each sample only restores 3% of your hunger, I spent a lot of the early game collecting and eating these things. Yummy, yummy seaweed salad. I found a couple of brain corals whose bubbles allowed me to refill my oxygen without returning to the life pod. And at this point, I started scanning everything because I was going to need every one of those databank entries. And there was a lot to scan. Night was falling as I braved suicidal crashfish to get the last few resources I needed for the repair tool, ow! And more importantly, the high-capacity O2 tank. This would extend my range from the life pod far enough to get the blueprints and resources for a sea glide, followed by the builder tool. I was all set to start building my main base, but this is where I made a big mistake. I planned to build at my favorite main base spot by the thermal vent near the northern end of the shallows. But when I got there, I discovered I had not brought enough quartz to build the solar panel needed to power the base and provide it with oxygen. Now I was on the clock. I couldn't surface, so if I didn't find the quartz, build the base, and get inside in time, I would drown. Fortunately, I knew the area and dove straight for a nearby cave. In this game, the exact placement of resources is randomized in each playthrough, so I was lucky to find 2 quartz right by the entrance. It looked like I would have plenty of time to build the base. A lot of players don't realize you can build a hatch on top of your base, saving wall space inside for modules and lockers. After one more resource gathering run, I was able to build a fabricator and a beacon. All that was left now was to place the beacon and give my base a name. By now, I had spent a lot of time sitting on top of brain coral and eating creepvine samples, and I was really starting to feel the pain of this run. So I named my new base, Why So Hard? At this point it was fully nighttime, and with my solar panels almost drained, I wouldn't be doing any more crafting until morning. So I decided I would visit the only other life pod I had a beacon for, Life Pod 3. A handy rule of thumb when using the Sea Glide is that it travels at about 10 meters per second. This means to go somewhere 230 meters away will take about 23 seconds to get there and 23 seconds to get back. So I knew I had plenty of time, as the high-capacity O2 tank has 135 seconds of oxygen. I took a quick stop to eat some more creepvine samples, and then I arrived at the life pod. We'll need to visit each and every life pod over the course of this run, as they all have abandoned PDAs with unique databank entries. I grabbed this PDA, as well as the blueprints for the compass, then headed back and built a couple more T-sections, giving myself a decent-sized starter base. And it was at this point that I finally fixed my screen recording software. It's better to see the whole screen, isn't it? I needed some more resources to craft the rest of my basic gear, and I knew just where to go looking. I pulled out my Sea Glide and headed for the thermal vent near my base. I planned to eventually build a thermal reactor here to increase my power generation, but the thermal vents in the safe shallows are also a great source of early game resources. Ow! I guess they are a little dangerous though. It also connects to a cave system with which Subnautica veterans are all too familiar. Ow! Crashfish are not faster than a Sea Glide, but if you don't have one yet, here's a tip for dealing with them. While crashfish can build up quite a bit of speed, they can't turn very quickly, so take the mindset of a bullfighter, letting them charge at you and then dodging past them so that you end up behind them. Actually, this strategy kind of works for every creature in Subnautica. While exploring the Crashfish Cave, I also found a mesmer with glowing green pustules, unlocking an important databank entry about the mysterious bacterial infection. I returned the resources to my base, and now had a radio, a medkit fabricator, an extra battery, a compass, and a rebreather. I had now received a new distress beacon from LifePod 17. That's the one with this guy.
This is Ozzy from the cafeteria. What the hell, guys? They didn't warn us this might happen.
LifePod 17 is very far away. We're not going to be getting there and back without refilling our oxygen. And since we're not allowed to surface, we'll now be starting our general strategy for this entire run, which is to build a large number of miniature bases dotted across the map. So I packed up just enough materials for a compartment, a solar panel, and a hatch, and I headed out. One thing I really enjoy about following these two rules is that it forces you to experience the entire game, roughly in the order intended. You get to see everything Subnautica has to offer, and you're not just speeding through the central plot points. As I approached my destination, I picked a spot for my mini base a little to the north of the life pod, as there's a lot to do here beyond visiting the life pod itself. Construction of the base went off without a hitch, and as I finished up the solar panel, I was ready to go inside and get a breath of fresh air. But when I went inside, disaster struck.
Emergency power only. Oxygen production offline.
I hadn't realized it was nighttime, meaning the solar panel had generated no energy, and so the base had no oxygen. In a blind panic, I started a mad dash back to my main base. But then I remembered, I had found some brain coral just on the edge of the kelp forest. Maybe I could find it again? Ah, there it is. Do you see it? As I refilled my oxygen from the bubbles, I vowed that from now on, I would only be building solar-powered bases during the day. The sun came out as I returned to LifePod 17, so now my base was truly ready. I grabbed the abandoned PDA and then spent some time scanning all the new fauna and fragments that were nearby. Ozzy's touching recording has got to be my favorite voice log in the game.
The Aurora was carrying everything needed to build the phase gate. Mobile vehicle bays, bioreactors, propulsion cannons. It had a cinema. There was a zero-G gym. My cafe. I don't understand how we're here now. I don't know why no one's coming for me.
Poor Ozzy. Having gotten everything near the life pod, I returned to the mini base, now powered, to refill my oxygen. I then worked my way towards the next target, the wreck just to the north. This wreck is one of the largest in the game and has a ton of things to scan, both inside and scattered around it. Ow. The little biters were nasty though. Then my PDA gives me a warning.
Emergency. A quantum detonation has occurred in the Aurora's drive core. The reactor will reach a supercritical state in T-minus 10, 9.
Normally, I would surface to watch the Aurora explode, but I can't do that in this run.
New blueprint acquired.
The explosion actually looks kind of cool from under the water, too. After refilling my oxygen at the base and putting a fresh battery in my Sea Glide, it was time to enter the wreck itself. This gigantic wreck has an expansive series of rooms that are easy to get lost in. Here, I would find numerous pieces of furniture, 2 unique PDAs, enough fragments to complete my blueprints of the mobile vehicle bay, the battery charger, the laser cutter, and the modification station, and most importantly, this cool-looking poster. This wreck was huge, and I had to go back to my base a few times for oxygen. But in the end, it was worth it. The battery charger was going to be especially useful since I was going to be using my Sea Glide a lot. I had one last task in this area before heading back, and that was to dive down into the jelly shroom cave. This cave is dangerous and not really intended to be entered this early in the game. But I had been led to the cave entrance by the LifePod 17 beacon, and it was my first chance to get some more advanced resources like lithium, magnetite, and the diamond I would need for the laser cutter blueprint I just got. Over 200 meters down, I was not stopping to scan anything. I wanted to spend every second of oxygen I had looking for resources. I tried to stick to the edge of the cave, near where I had come in, and away from the crab snakes that lived inside the jelly shrooms. I was not interested in getting my face chewed off today. I also found an abandoned PDA from a group of survivors that crashed here years ago. It said they had set up a base on the far side of the cave, but I wasn't going to make it over there now.
The conditions in this cave support a microcosm of unique, possibly predatory life forms. Detecting an artificial structure somewhere in the region.
After 2 dives in the cave, I had the resources I needed, and I was ready to head home. I filled the rest of my inventory with nearby resources and set course for my main base. This had been a fruitful journey, and I was ready for the next step in my adventure. Back at my main base, there was a new radio message waiting for me.
This is Avery Quinn of Trading Ship Sunbeam. Aurora D. Reed, over.
It seems someone had noticed the crash and was coming to rescue us. Hooray! As I listened to the message, I built a couple more lockers and organized my storage. Then I built the all-important battery charger so I would not have to keep making new batteries. Next up was the laser cutter. I was ready to explore any wreck now. I had gotten quite hungry by this point, so I had to take a break to eat. A long break to eat a whole lot of kelp. Seriously, if you think this is boring, you should see how much I've been editing out. I cannot wait to get some farming going. Finally, I crafted a mobile vehicle bay. I would eventually need to make everything I could from the mobile vehicle bay, as each vehicle has a unique achievement for building it. But since I couldn't pilot any of them, I wasn't in any particular hurry. So why craft it now? Well, part of Subnautica's ingenious design is that the radio signals are triggered not just by the passage of time, but by actions that you take. This allows you to progress at your pace, nudging you forward exactly when you need it. In this case, building the mobile vehicle bay triggers the signal for LifePod 19, which is where I wanted to go next. Pretty soon, the distress signal came in.
This is Officer Keenan, LifePod 19. The captain is gone. I have assumed command.
Before leaving for LifePod 19, I decided to do a little more construction on my base, since it would eventually need to be huge. So I added a few more types of compartments, then used some of that extra space for a modification station. The Thermoblade is the first upgrade you typically get at the modification station, which deals double damage and instantly cooks fish. But since I'll never be dealing damage or cooking fish on this run, I decide I'll stick it out with my regular old survival knife. LifePod 19 would be my longest journey yet, so I packed up a lot of supplies to build the mini base when I got there. This time, I took careful note of the fact that it was nighttime when I left, and reminded myself that I would have to wait until morning before my base could produce oxygen. My original LifePod was more or less on the way, so I stopped there to refill my O2. But it was still over 1,000 meters to LifePod 19. It would take nearly my entire oxygen tank just to get there, let alone build a base. So I came up with a plan. I would first scout the route for some brain coral along the way, so that I would have less distance to go on my full tank of oxygen. I knew there tended to be brain coral along the borders of the grassy plateaus, but I still spent a long time wandering around before I finally found some. I also took the opportunity to fill up on creepvine at the nearby kelp forest, since there would be nothing I could eat near LifePod 19. Ow! The local fauna was really not very friendly here. Ow! After completely filling my tank, I set out for my destination. It had been night for a while now, so I was hoping the sun would come up on my way there. I figured if it was still dark when I had used up close to half my oxygen, I would turn around and still have time to get back to the brain coral. Sounds like a good plan, right? Ooh, boy was I wrong. You see, it did stay dark, and I did have to turn back around, but I hadn't left a beacon by the brain coral, so I had to navigate back from memory. In the dark. It had to be back towards my base, right? But I think it was a little to the left. As I started passing unfamiliar terrain, my oxygen was getting low. Panic set in. This was hardcore mode. If I drowned here, there would be no way to respawn besides restarting the entire game. But as I continued to wander and my oxygen dwindled, panic became acceptance. My first attempt at the Subnautica Ultimate Challenge was about to end in failure. It was a grim reminder that the #1 killer in this game is not any kind of creature, but the water itself. I had a lot of fun on this run, and will definitely be attempting this challenge again. As if to taunt me, during my last few seconds of oxygen, the brain coral came into view in the distance. Ah well, thanks for watching, and be sure to like, comment, and wait a minute, am I gonna make it? If I can get the bubble! I got it! I made it! I'm alive! I'm alive! Woohoo! Let's go! Haha! The run is still alive! I can't believe it! I mean, just as I had planned all along, I arrived at the brain coral with perfect timing. I was not trying that again until it was completely light, so I explored a nearby wreck as the sun rose. I used my laser cutter for the first time, and got a couple new blueprints, the propulsion cannon and the lightweight high-capacity O2 tank. Exploring these tight enclosed wrecks can be stressful, but compared to what I had just been through, it was a relaxing walk on the beach. When I exited the wreck, the sun was out, so I filled up my oxygen, and this time made it to LifePod 19 and built my base. I had come so close to dying, but I didn't. And I was ready to continue on this unreasonably difficult journey. Thanks for coming with me on this adventure, and I hope you'll join me for part 2 of the Subnautica Ultimate Challenge.